Welcome to this essential guide on the transition to ISO 14001, 2026. Today, with the new ISO 14001-2026 now published, proactive implementation is the hallmark of a resilient and forward-thinking organization. This session is designed for professionals at the forefront of environmental management. Seasoned ISO consultants, meticulous auditors, dedicated environmental managers, and teams within certification bodies. Our goal is to equip you with a clear, structured understanding of what's changing, why it's changing, and how to navigate this transition with confidence. We will transform uncertainty into a strategic roadmap for compliance, and more importantly, for enhanced environmental performance. The updates are not merely administrative. They represent a significant step forward in how we approach our environmental responsibilities. For decades, ISO 14001 has served as the world's premier framework for environmental management systems, or EMS. It provides organizations with a structured approach to managing their environmental impacts, helping them fulfill compliance obligations and achieve their environmental objectives. The standard's success lies in its universal applicability, offering a robust yet flexible model that can be adapted to any organization, regardless of its size, sector, or location. The core strength of ISO 14001 has always been its foundation in the principle of continual improvement, embodied by the Plan-Do-Check-Act cycle. However, the context in which we operate has changed dramatically since the 2015 revision. The world faces unprecedented environmental challenges, and stakeholder expectations have soared. The 2026 revision is a direct response to this new reality. The most significant driver is, without question, the escalating climate crisis. Since 2015, the scientific consensus on climate change has solidified, and its physical and transitional risks have become undeniable business realities. Stakeholders, from investors to customers, now demand that organizations demonstrate how they are addressing climate-related risks and opportunities. The new standard now compels organizations to systematically identify, assess, and manage their role in both contributing to and being affected by a changing climate. Another powerful force is the convergence of environmental management with the broader frameworks of environmental, social, and governance, or ESG, and sustainability. An organization's environmental performance is no longer viewed in isolation, but as a critical pillar of its overall ESG profile. The ISO 14001-2026 revision seeks to formalize this connection, ensuring that the EMS is not just a technical compliance tool, but a strategic asset that supports the organization's wider sustainability commitments. Finally, the revision reflects a maturation of core concepts introduced in the 2015 standard. Two areas have been significantly deepened: lifecycle thinking and the risk-based approach. The 2026 update provides clearer, more explicit requirements, pushing organizations toward more structured and auditable methodologies that genuinely drive environmental performance improvement. It is important to state up front that this is an evolution, not a revolution. The standard retains its familiar structure based on the Annex SL high-level structure, ensuring continuity and integration with other management system standards. However, expectations have been sharpened considerably, shifting focus from having a system to demonstrating tangible environmental performance outcomes. First, stronger, explicit integration of climate change considerations. This is a theme embedded across the standard, requiring organizations to demonstrate how they've assessed climate-related risks and integrated these findings into EMS objectives and controls. Second, lifecycle thinking is now a concrete operational requirement. The 2026 version demands more rigorous evaluation and control of upstream and downstream processes, extending the organization's environmental responsibility beyond its factory gates. Third, stronger emphasis on measurable environmental performance improvement. The 2026 revision shifts focus toward improving actual environmental outcomes, requiring organizations to demonstrate real environmental results rather than just system improvements. Clause 4 in ISO 14001:2015 established requirements to determine the context of the organization and identify needs and expectations of interested parties. Organizations were required to identify internal and external issues relevant to their purpose and EMS outcomes, understand boundaries and applicability, and use these findings to determine the scope of the EMS. The 2015 approach promoted risk-based thinking, but left methodologies largely to the organization, asking for proportionate responses with room for interpretation by auditors and practitioners. ISO 14001:2026 strengthens Clause 4 by making environmental conditions central to the context analysis. Where 2015 invited consideration, 2026 requires explicit identification and assessment of environmental conditions such as climate change, biodiversity loss, resource scarcity, and pollution pressures relevant to the organization. The updated clause expands the treatment of interested parties, requiring organizations to identify stakeholder expectations and demonstrate how those expectations shape environmental objectives and controls, linking context analysis to organizational strategy. The new version requires documented, auditable processes for environmental scanning, more rigorous systematic environmental intelligence gathering, and clear traceability from context to scope, objectives, and risk treatment measures. Practically, organizations will need to improve their environmental scanning capabilities. This means building processes to gather reliable data on climate trends, biodiversity status, and resource use that affect operations and value chains. The expanded scope of interested parties forces better stakeholder engagement mechanisms. Procurement, investor relations, communications, and community engagement must feed into the context process. Organizational strategy must reflect the outcomes of the enhanced context analysis, requiring integration between strategy, risk management, and sustainability initiatives. Auditors will approach Clause 4 expecting to see documented environmental scanning and explicit links to strategy and scope. They will ask for the organization's context analysis, credible data sources, and methodologies used to identify climate and biodiversity issues. Evidence expectations include a documented process for context analysis, records of stakeholder engagement, and outputs that fed into scope determination, with clear traceability from context inputs to EMS objectives and controls. ISO 14001:2026 tightens Clause 5 by elevating leadership from oversight to demonstrable outcome accountability. Top management must show active involvement and clear accountability for environmental outcomes and sustainability alignment, with evidence of leadership integrating EMS direction into strategic planning. The revised clause explicitly links leadership to sustainability strategy, requiring alignment between the EMS and broader ESG commitments. Leadership must document decisions and rationale where conflicts exist between commercial pressures and environmental objectives. Finally, 2026 tightens requirements for role clarity and competence at top levels. Leaders must ensure they have sufficient understanding of environmental risks and impacts to make informed strategic decisions. ISO 14001:1926 tightens planning requirements substantially, making risk-based thinking more rigorous and explicit. The new clause requires structured methodologies for identifying and assessing risks and opportunities, including climate-related and lifecycle-derived risks. Lifecycle thinking is elevated from perspective to operational requirement. Planning must now consider upstream and downstream impacts where relevant to the organization's environmental footprint, shifting from internal operational focus to a value chain perspective. The new clause tightens traceability requirements, demanding clear links from identified risks and aspects to selected controls, objectives, and performance indicators, with measurable, time-bound objectives driven by quantified metrics. ISO 14001 to 2026 enhances Clause 7 by requiring stronger evidence of competence and effectiveness of awareness interventions. Organizations must demonstrate not only that training occurred, but that it produced the required competence to manage environmental impacts and risks. Communication requirements are sharpened, with organizations required to ensure communications address stakeholder expectations and are suitable for intended audiences, particularly regarding lifecycle impacts. Documented information control focuses more on data integrity and reliability, with stronger controls over environmental data sources, measurement records, and information used for decision-making. Clause 8 strengthens lifecycle thinking and supply chain controls. The clause demands systematic application of lifecycle thinking into operational planning across design, procurement, production, distribution, use, and end-of-life stages. Requirements for controlling external providers have been substantially strengthened. Organizations must evaluate environmental performance of suppliers and integrate contractual or procedural controls where necessary, making procurement a critical control point for the EMS. Operational controls are expected to be more outcome-oriented. Organizations must show controls effectively manage impacts and are monitored and validated, with more rigorous emergency preparedness for broader environmental consequences. In ISO 14001-2026, Clauses 9 and 10 elevate data reliability and environmental performance. Clause 9 tightens requirements for measurement systems, data integrity, and environmental performance indicators that are meaningful and auditable. Clause 10 shifts improvement focus from purely system fixes to measurable environmental improvements. Organizations must show that corrective actions lead to reduced impacts and that continual improvement is demonstrable in outcome metrics. The audit focus under 2026 changes accordingly. Auditors will examine data collection methods, calibration, validation, and statistical analysis supporting environmental performance indicators, looking for clear KPIs linked to significant aspects, life cycle impacts, and leadership objectives. One of the most profound shifts in ISO 14001-2026 is the deliberate, systematic integration of climate change. It's woven into the fabric of the standard as a climate resilience framework, moving climate from the periphery to the core of strategic planning. Organizations must explicitly identify how climate change affects them and assess how their activities contribute to climate change. This dual perspective covers physical risks from extreme weather and transition risks from policy changes and technological shifts. The EMS becomes the primary tool for navigating the climate transition, with climate awareness required from top management, environmental objectives including decarbonization targets, and operational controls managing identified climate aspects. While the 2015 version introduced lifecycle perspective, the 2026 revision addresses ambiguity by significantly expanding and operationalizing lifecycle thinking. It requires structured and proactive approaches to identifying, evaluating, and influencing environmental impacts across the entire value chain. This evolution pushes the EMS beyond organizational fence lines, requiring deeper cross-functional collaboration. Design teams must integrate environmental considerations. Procurement becomes a critical control point, and environmental managers must engage across departments. The standard requires organizations to establish criteria controlling how products are designed, manufactured, distributed, used, and disposed of, representing a deeper commitment to product stewardship and environmental responsibility. A subtle but powerful theme in ISO 14001-2026 is explicit alignment with environmental, social, and governance frameworks and corporate sustainability. The revision ensures the EMS is not just a compliance tool, but a strategic asset supporting and validating public-facing ESG commitments. Organizations must consider needs and expectations of wider interested parties, including investors, ratings agencies, and community groups. The EMS must be responsive to external signals and support transparent sustainability disclosures. This alignment elevates ISO 14001 certification value, positioning it as independent assurance that organizations have managed systems backing environmental claims, enhancing credibility with all stakeholders in the ESG ecosystem. The 2026 version addresses subjective and varied risk-based thinking applications by introducing formalized, structured, and auditable methodologies. Organizations must implement systematic processes for identifying, analyzing, evaluating, planning treatment, and monitoring risks. The revision strengthens traceability requirements, demanding clear lines of sight from identified risks through planning, objectives, controls, resources, and performance indicators, creating closed-loop systems demonstrating that significant environmental risks are under control. This maturation ensures risk-based thinking as a dynamic, data-driven process rather than static exercise, with consistent application, defensible criteria, and genuine environmental performance improvement outcomes. Understanding the transition timeline is crucial for structured migration to ISO 14001-2026. With the standard now published, a 3-year transition window applies after publication, with the final deadline in early 2029. During transition, your ISO 14001-2015 certificate remains valid. You are not immediately non-compliant when the new standard is published, but all organizations must complete transition before the final deadline. The 3-year period provides preparation time, but early adopters gain strategic advantage. Waiting until the last minute creates high-risk scenarios with auditor demand surges and scheduling bottlenecks. Certification bodies play crucial supportive roles as partners in navigating changes. Their activities evolve from awareness raising and readiness checks to formal assessment, providing resources including webinars, guidance documents, checklists, and training courses. As transition unfolds, routine audits begin changing. While organizations can be audited against 2015 standards, auditors increasingly adopt forward-looking approaches, conducting informal readiness checks and optional gap assessments during surveillance audits. Behind the scenes, certification bodies undertake intensive transition processes, updating systems, processes, and personnel alignment with new standards, including methodology updates, checklist revisions, and rigorous auditor training programs. The transition audit is the formal, decisive event demonstrating full compliance with ISO 14001-2026. It's a comprehensive assessment of entire EMS against new standards, typically integrated into scheduled surveillance or recertification audits. Preparation is the foundation of success. Complete all implementation steps before auditors arrive. Conduct internal audits against 2026 standards, and hold management reviews assessing readiness to identify and correct remaining gaps. Auditors focus on updated risk and context documentation, deeper lifecycle thinking integration, leadership accountability evidence, and performance-focused results, seeking objective evidence of gap closure between 2015 and 2026 requirements. Embarking on transition requires structured, methodical approaches beginning with thorough gap analysis. This involves detailed comparison of current ISO 14001-2015 compliant EMS against 2026 requirements, generating specific actionable lists of discrepancies from minor terminology updates to significant procedural overhauls. Update foundational EMS documents, including Clause 4 context and Clause 6 risk assessment. Revise organizational context processes, incorporating stronger climate change and biodiversity requirements, and update risk assessment methodologies reflecting new context and expanded lifecycle thinking requirements. Phase 1 concludes with revising environmental objectives and KPIs. Objectives must be traceable to updated context, new risk registers, and expanded significant aspects, being measurable, outcome-focused, and directly linked to demonstrating tangible environmental performance improvement. Phase 2 focuses on tactical implementation, internal verification, and external audit preparation. Begin with comprehensive training and communication, starting with top leadership briefings on enhanced responsibilities and strategic climate change implications, followed by functional team training and all-staff awareness programs. Update documented information and implement new operational controls, revising procedures, work instructions, and forms reflecting new processes for managing lifecycle aspects and controlling external providers. Putting theory into practice through supplier evaluations and design criteria integration. Rigorously verify effectiveness through full internal audits against ISO 14001:2026 standards. This dress rehearsal must be conducted with external audit scrutiny levels, focusing on new and enhanced requirements, followed by formal management reviews assessing complete updated EMS readiness. As we conclude this exploration of ISO 14001:2026, synthesize our journey into clear, actionable takeaways. The key message: this revision is evolution, not revolution. Your existing investment is preserved and becomes the platform for next-level maturity. The revision shifts focus from procedural compliance to tangible environmental performance. ISO 2026 asks, is your system delivering measurable environmental improvements? Use your system as a dynamic engine for change, measuring success through reduced emissions, lower resource consumption, and managed biodiversity and climate impacts. This performance focus aligns with major sustainability trends, responding to demands from investors, regulators, customers, and communities. ISO 14001:2026 provides an internationally recognized framework to meet these demands authentically, transforming your EMS into a strategic asset that builds trust, mitigates risk, and unlocks new value. Embrace a proactive approach to transition. The 3-year window allows thoughtful planning, not last-minute scrambling. Start gap analysis now, engage leadership early, and follow the roadmap methodically. View transition as an opportunity to re-energize environmental programs, deepen stakeholder engagement, and reaffirm commitment to a sustainable future. The journey to ISO 14001:2026 is toward better environmental performance, and it is best started today. Thank you.